trafficking. We work with men, women, and children of all ages. We work with U.S. citizens. We also work with people from other countries. Many times there's a misconception, or maybe there's, the knowledge isn't out there that we work with anyone. If you are a confirmed victim of human trafficking, we will work with you. Our shelter has very, very low barriers. There's a saying that traffickers do not discriminate. Therefore, advocates and nonprofits of, that work with victims of human trafficking do not discriminate either. So Center of Hope's been around for about 6 years. I've been with them for 5 years. So I do outreach, community outreach, and I'm also an advocate. I work alongside our case managers and support the families and survivors. Our shelter is at an undisclosed location, and that is for the safety of our survivors. Many times people think, oh, okay, you're like the battered women's shelter. They kind of think that that's the same thing. Domestic violence and human trafficking are two different crimes. Therefore, like I said, we work specifically with survivors of human trafficking. Part of our case management, Center of Hope is a person-centered led case management. So what that looks like is when we work with our survivors, we follow their lead. We walk alongside them. Our case managers don't have a plan and say, okay, this is where we start and this is what you're going to do, X, Y, and Z. That's not how it works. Our case managers will say, what do you need? And I will be honest with you, many times it's basic needs. It's, well, miss, I need a place to stay. I need a permanent place to stay so they can transition from our shelter to permanent housing. Miss, me and my family, we have a place, but we just need some food. Miss, we need help with utilities and with rent. Or it could be, miss, I need, I want to get my GED, I just don't know where to start. So whatever the clients want to work on, that's what the case managers work on them with. So there's actually 7 of us. We've grown by 3 in 2021. We had just got a brand new executive director. We have a CYD Community Youth Development employee, and she works specific in the 79924 area code. The state of Texas has coded 79924 as the most at risk zip code. Zip code in El Paso. So we have someone that works specifically with the schools in that area. Then we have 2 case managers that work with youth. So we have partnerships with many agencies here in El Paso, and one of that partnership is with the Juvenile Probation Department. So what that looks like is JPD will screen every male and female that comes to them. Doesn't matter what they're there for, they will screen them for human trafficking. And depending on the score of that person, then they will let us know. They refer to us, and they'll send us the score and how and why they scored that number. So some of them are clear concern, and some of them are, they're right there on the border. So, our case managers go in there and meet with them. Well, we're not going in physically right now because of COVID. So we'll do FaceTime or any way. A lot of times the JPD will set up a Zoom call, and our case managers will do their own assessment with them. So as we go through this presentation, we'll touch a little bit on the law portion, and we're going to talk about, red flags, why they stay, kind of the mentality of our survivors. A lot of times we get a lot of questions of why they stay and why this is happening, or why they let them, this happen to them. There's so many misconceptions that we can get through. And over the summer, on social media, I read so many misconceptions, and they talked about how, human trafficking is kidnapping, and they're taking them off, out of their mom's arms as they're in the parking lot of Walmart. They talked about Wayfair. They talked about Pizzagate, but nothing like that is, that's sensationalizing it. And that's not what human trafficking is. And it's definitely not what's happening in El Paso. So as we go through this presentation, if you have a question and I'm on a particular slide, go ahead and type it in the chat, and then, you know, I don't mind stopping and explaining it. Maybe I'm not explaining it correctly, or maybe you need an example. I don't mind stopping at all, or we can save the questions towards the end of the presentation. So what is human trafficking? Many times human trafficking is confused for human smuggling. Human smuggling is a crime against the border. You know, someone will pay a coyote to bring them into the United States illegally. Human trafficking is a crime against a person. So a lot of times people confuse them because human trafficking also sounds like movement, right? So they'll say, okay, if they're kidnapped, kind of like the movie Taken, I hear that a lot, and they're trafficked all over the United States. So many times when a survivor has been trafficked, they live at home, they go to school, and they're trafficked after school. It's happened whether it's a court case or schools, or even parents don't understand that, and they'll say, no, you know what, she lived under my roof. If there was something going on, she could have asked for help. They went to school. That's, you know, they weren't held somewhere by force. So there's, again, a lot of misconceptions. So it is a buying and selling of individuals for either labor trafficking or commercial sex. What labor trafficking looks like in El Paso is construction work, agriculture work, landscape, restaurants. And in the past couple of months, I'd say even into the midsummer, there was a lot of raids on massage parlors in El Paso. You know, we work closely with the FBI, HSI, Sheriff's Department, and our local police department, and they conducted simultaneous raids on massage parlors. I believe it was in August. They hit 11 at the same time. Out of all those people that they you know, pulled out of the massage parlors, employees, only one came to our shelter. The others chose not to. And this young lady stayed in our shelter for a few days until she was able to go back home, and New York was home for her. So if they're adults, and, you know, it's difficult. You know, people say, well, you know, when you rescue them, first of all, we don't rescue, that's law enforcement. They'll always say, when you rescue them, I'm sure they're so happy and they want the help and they just want to go with you and they get out of the life. Many of them are confused, they're scared, they're not sure, they may not even speak the language. So they're not comfortable going to another shelter. They don't know where they're going. There's a lot going on. So it's you know, it's up to them. Again, it's centered, it's person-centered. So this young lady did want to come to our shelter, and then she stayed for a few days and went back home. When we talk about commercial sex, you know, people say human trafficking is prostitution. Yes, but it's also stripping. It's also pornography. It is also a lot of these online websites where, you know, there's a webcam similar to OnlyFans, and but there's a lot of these, unfortunately, black market where these webcam shows are involving minors, and, you know, there's no checking of age, and unfortunately, it's a lot of exploiting of children. So when we hear human trafficking, a lot of time, going back to the movie Taken, they think, okay, again, you know, you're not kidnapped, you're taken out. You're not taken out of El Paso, you're not, you know, moved across the United States. But human trafficking is about exploitation. There doesn't have to involve movement. And so worldwide versus United States, what I would say worldwide human trafficking looks like is similar to the movie Taken, where they're kidnapped and then they're sold, you know, outside of the country. And again, United States, we don't see a lot of kidnapping, although it does happen. We don't see a lot of it. Many of the survivors who have been trafficked, it's by someone they know. It could be a family member or a romantic partner. And human trafficking is now known as modern day slavery. Let me try to click on the next slide. Oops, I passed. Sorry about that. So now to the law portion of it. So if someone's forced into stripping, into prostitution, and they are under 18, they are automatically a victim of human trafficking because they are a minor and they cannot consent. You know, we've worked with young ladies who have, you know, 12 years old, and they've told me, you know what, miss, this is my hustle. No one's forcing me to do it. This is how I make my money. This is what I want to do. And it doesn't matter. This isn't a rule. Sometimes they think it's a rule that we make up, and we have to explain to them, this is out of our hands. This is the law. You're under 17. You cannot consent. You're automatically a victim of trafficking. So like I said, they'll, you know, I had a 15-year-old tell me, Miss, it's I'm no different than a married woman. And I said, okay, explain it to me. And she said, well, first of all, you know, a married woman goes to work, gets paid, and she turns that paycheck over to her husband, and he puts a roof over her head and food on the table. She says, I do the same, and I'm no different. But she is, again, she's a minor, or she or he's a minor, and they cannot consent by law. So if they're an adult, 18 and above, for them to be a confirmed victim of human trafficking, one of the three means must be proven in a court of law: force, fraud, or coercion. Just one. Many, many times that we've seen in cases, all three of these are present, but they just, you know, law enforcement just has to prove one. Force is what it sounds like. You know, they're forcing someone to do something against their will, or they have them somewhere held by force, right? You know, an apartment, a basement. You hear a lot of that in the news, you know, where they're housed somewhere and they're for years and years. You don't hear a lot about trafficking cases where they lived, you know, and came and went to school. You know, there were neighbors, there were domestics working in a home. So fraud is lies. Lies about employment, lies about the type of job, lies about hours or wages. So say you are looking for a job and you answer an ad, someone's looking for a nanny. The ad reads, you know, they're looking for someone to live and work at the home. They will provide room and board, they'll provide meals, and they will pay $300 at the end of the week. And so this person starts working there, and the hours are actually 6 in the morning to midnight. They may sleep in the garage. They'll provide one meal. And then if they pay them, they'll pay them maybe $50 at the end of the week. That would be the fraud, the lies. The coercion are threats, threats to them and threats to their family. This is what we see a lot, especially with our minors. We see a lot of sextortion. We know that, you know, as minors, as young kids, social media plays a huge part of their lives. So when we talk to students at schools, you know, I'll ask them like, hey, if there's a fight video, if there's something, you know, everyone's sharing what, you know, or nudes or anything like that, what do you all do if you get it? And they're like, oh, miss, you know, it goes viral. We share it. So when a predator is telling, you know, these kiddos that if they don't do what they're telling them to do, then they're going to post these videos or there's pictures on social media, and it's going to spread like wildfire. You know, your family and friends are going to see you for who you are. You know, a lot of times these young people freeze. They get scared because they know it's true. And they will go along with, unfortunately, what they're made to do. So again, one of these three means must be proven in an adult for it to be a confirmed victim of human trafficking. But in a minor under 18, they don't have to prove any of the means. Again, they cannot consent, and that's the law. So when we talk about what, you know, there's so many House bills and so many new laws that come into effect, and we try to, you know, we have to know them. And one of the ones that just came up, and this was in 2019, 2020, it was House Bill 111. And it was by our own Representative Mary Gonzalez here in El Paso. And she introduced the bill stating that all educators must have a human trafficking 101 on how to identify and how to report. And she introduced it and it passed. So we work with all 8 of our school districts. We are in all 8 of our school districts, elementary, middle, and high school, training their staff, you know, on how to identify and report. Because unfortunately, if you think that human trafficking is a Wayfair cabinet and, you know, you have a kiddo in trouble right in front of you and you don't see it, then you can't, you know, report and get those kiddos the help that they need. So thankfully to our Representative Mary Gonzalez, now we're training the staff. And since, you know, we haven't been able to go into the schools, we've concentrated, you know, training our staff in our community. So, and also, you know, we train our medical community, we train our law enforcement partners, we, you know, many other nonprofits, and just anyone in our community who, you know, want to know what human trafficking is and what signs to look for. So a lot of times they always ask me, like, who are these traffickers? You know, who are these creepy people? I had this one young lady in one of our high schools raise her hand and say, Miss, you don't have to worry about me because I am not speaking to a trafficker, ever, ever. And I said, great. Tell me why. And she said, well, first of all, they're really gross. They don't bathe. Their hair's really greasy. They don't shave, and they wear wife beaters all day. So I stood there and I was trying to figure out, where does she get that from? And then I thought, okay, this young lady must watch a lot of Law and Order or a lot of these crime shows where predators are made to look like that, right? Creepy, gross, where no one would ever give them the time of day. Well, unfortunately, traffickers and predators, they're, like I told you earlier, victims of human trafficking can be male and female. So are traffickers. They could be female as well. They're good looking, very charismatic. They have a lot of money. They're those people. I went to a training and someone called them traffickers the best child psychologists out there. They said because they know exactly how to tune in and how to, they use Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That pyramid, they said they use it to the T. They are there and they're listening and they're, the knight in shining armor. I've had more than one survivor, define or say that about her trafficker, that she thought he was her knight in shining armor. It's also friends and peers that are traffickers. Just, a lot of times people think, okay, they're older. Yes, they are. But what we're seeing now is traffickers are now high school aged. They're friends. But there's also, we see that in recruiters. There was a middle school here in El Paso that a trafficker was paying them $25 for every girl that these two girls would take to a party at the end of the week. So Saturday came around and these young ladies showed up at the party. They drank, they did drugs, and they were very impaired. And then they were gang raped. So they were gang raped and they were videotaped. So the next day, they were contacted and said, hey, there's a video of you having sex with all these guys. And of course, these girls panicked. And then they said, but you know what? I mean, we can sell it back to you if you're interested. So these girls were like, okay, how much? And they said, well, $5,000. So then, these girls were like, I don't have the money. And they said, well, why don't you ask your parents? And they said, absolutely not. I can't. So then they said, that's okay. You can work it off. So you'll do what we're telling, what we want you to do, and then you'll meet your $5,000 quota, and we'll give you back the pictures and the video. And these young girls were doing it, unfortunately, and they really, really believed that they were going to get back those video and pictures, and we all knew that that was just, a lie that these predators had told them. Trusted authority figures, and that's probably one of the hardest ones, because when we go in there, I tell you, we're in elementary schools. I fought so hard to get in elementary schools because that's where it starts. If these kids have a tablet, a phone, anything like that, if they're on the internet, if they're on social media, anything like that, they are, they're at risk of being contacted from a predator, a trafficker, a pedophile, anything like that. So at the beginning, when we started working with schools, they said, no, I think you're in the middle school and high school. I think that would be best if you all stayed there. So when we got into elementary schools, we didn't go in there talking about human trafficking. We went in there talking about internet safety. We used the curriculum that the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has. So, I went in there and I was talking to some elementary kids, and we're talking to them about how to, to find that trusted adult. Who's your trusted adult at home? And some of them were like, my mom, my aunt, my dad, my grandma, my grandpa. And some kiddos said, I don't think I have one at home. I'm not close to my mom. My dad's not there. So then we'd ask them, okay, who's your trusted authority figure? Who do you trust, at school? And so, they'd say my teacher, my coach, the principal. But on the same, at the same time, trusted authority figures are traffickers. About 6 years ago, there was a JPD officer who was trafficking 2 girls out of JPD, right out of JPD. And I remember hearing about him, and everybody would say the same thing. This guy was so charismatic, so caring. This guy went to UTEP. He graduated from UTEP, played UTEP football, super popular, great, great guy. And to this day, I hear, like, I can't believe it was him. He was just so caring. He really cared about the kids. Well, many times these predators will position themselves, in a job where, they're working with at-risk youth. What a better place to be than working, with these kiddos who need help. And so as I was talking to these third graders, we had I had a group of kids, boys, 3 boys that called me over and said, Miss, can we show you something? And I said, yes. So they popped open their school-issued laptop and they showed me the pornography that they were downloading. And so I said, okay, like, you know, why porn? And they said, well, it's because we play Roblox. And we have a friend that plays Roblox with us, and he sends us these links. So we click on these links, and it's porn. It's these videos. They didn't understand what it was. And this was Thursday that I gave my presentation. They had been downloading these videos since Monday. That Thursday, these third grade boys were watching bestiality porn. So, you know, I asked them, like, hey, does this kid come to your friend? Does he come to the same school? And they said, no. You know, it was, no, we just play with him on, you know, online. You know, they didn't know him face to face. They didn't, they've never met him, but they honestly believed that he was their age. They couldn't wrap their head around that, it could be an adult. So at that same school, you know, there was a 5th grade girl that airdropped her nude at the elementary school. And the reason they found out was because the custodian at that school, it popped up on his phone. The poor custodian freaked, ran to the principal's office, didn't even make it there, walked into a teacher's classroom and put it on her desk and said, I don't know how this got on my phone. So when they called this 5th grade girl in and they asked her about it, she said, yeah, I did. You know, she meant to send it to a little boy, and she airdropped it, and many people at the school got it. But it wasn't a big deal to her. You know, they talk about the Kardashians, and they want that Kardashian lifestyle, and they don't see the harm. You know, they talk a lot about sugar daddies. They want a sugar daddy. And, you bring that question up about the school issued laptops being, these kids got around the firewall for that district. And, when we're talking about that, and the teachers were like, these kids do it all the time. They get around the firewall. They are so IT savvy. So a lot of times when we do presentations, especially parent presentations, they'll tell us, I have fathers or moms that say, oh, well, I have boys. I have little boys, so this doesn't apply to me. If they're playing video games, like that example I just gave you, absolutely 100% it applies to you. Honestly, there's no, oh, okay, I live on this side of town, so that doesn't apply to me. I have a son, so this doesn't apply to me. None of that. Unfortunately, we see that a lot. There was another person that was reaching out to this young man, and he, again on video games, he would it's so easy to have a conversation. He was asking him like, hey, I go to this school, what school do you go to? And he said, I go to this school, I go to Scottsdale Elementary. Oh, okay, I live on this street. What street do you live on? And the young man would answer him, and he'd say, my mom works at Walgreens. And where does your mom work? Oh, my mom works at Walmart. Oh, okay. Well, sometimes my mom works nights, and, we stay with my sister. What about your mom? Yeah, I stay with my grandma. Oh, okay. Where does your dad work? Oh, my dad's not in the picture. So it's just that easy to pull information out of our kiddos, and they don't even realize it. Our kiddos just don't see that danger. They don't know. So it's just like having a conversation with a friend. But, and this is what we talk to parents about, or, caregivers, aunts, uncles, those siblings, nieces, nephews. You all have to look out for them. Many times I hear like, oh, well, he's in the next room, so he's playing video games, so he's safe, or I'm watching them. But when our kiddos have their headphones on, and we can't hear who they're conversing with, that's a problem. We don't know what's going on. So many of these video games, these predators pull them into a chat. So, all these things we need to be aware of. Again, it affects boys as well. So family members, we had this is probably one of the hardest ones that people don't understand. They're like, no, how can a mother do that? How can somebody, traffic their kid or sell their child? We worked with a high school, and this young lady was in class, didn't look good. And the teacher asked her what was wrong, and she said, well, she was coming off of some drugs. So the teacher sent her to the nurse. The nurse said, what's wrong? And she said, well, I'm coming off some drugs. And she said, well, what drugs did you take, or what did you smoke, or what? And this young lady told the nurse 3 different drugs that she was on. So the nurse asked her, why are you on so many drugs? What's going on? And she said, well, I live with my aunt. And after school, my aunt takes me to these men's homes, and I have to have sex with them for money. And the nurse was like, wait a minute, this is just crazy. Walks her to the counselor, and she says, tell her what you told me. So this young lady now repeats her story for a second time. Counselor's like, yeah, this sounds crazy. Brings in the SRO at the high school. Young lady repeats her story for the third time. They could not make any sense of it. They bring in the administrator, and they're all just sitting around in this office just looking at this young lady, confused. Of course, again, if you don't know what to look for, if you don't know what human trafficking is, this just sounds like a crazy story. And that's what they thought it was. They thought, you know what, she's still high. She's coming out with this crazy story. Let's call Aunt to come pick her up so she can go home. And that's exactly what they did. So we got a call from one of the staff employee who had just had a training with us and said, I don't know if this is human trafficking. I don't know what's going on, but something's weird. Something just doesn't make sense. Can you come to the school? So we called one of our DPS partners, and they met us at the school. The student had already gone home with the aunt. And yes, they are supposed to make that report to CPS. But they were still trying to sit there and just discussing about what a crazy story that was. And so we had to sit there and talk to them about what human trafficking was, that it wasn't a story, that you need to make that call. So unfortunately, they did make that call, and that student never went back. That student wasn't seen anymore. But I can tell you, for that school, they have turned it around. They are an amazing, amazing school. And for whatever reason, every year they have about 2 to 3 survivors that we work with attend that high school. And man, from the administrator down to the counselor, they have an amazing system on how to support their survivors while they're there. So, employers, when we come to talk about labor trafficking, and, a lot of times people say, well, why coyotes? Smuggling can turn into trafficking. We haven't had any cases here in El Paso, but it can. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. We talk about who's most at risk. Again, people say, it drives me crazy when people say, oh, well, I have boys, or you know what, my kids don't have any social media. Don't at all. Like, I know what my kids are doing. That's why they don't have a phone, or they don't have any social media. But, when I'm in the schools and talking to the kiddos will tell me, yeah, miss, my mom doesn't let me have a Snapchat, but that's okay because my friend, I have a Snapchat account on her phone. So I'll just check it on there. So a lot of times when, we talk about, again, on the prevention side, with caregiver or parent presentations, and they'll say, well, what can I download that will, totally, block these predators, or, not allow these predators to have any interaction with my kids. They want something that's 100% foolproof, and there's no such thing. The only thing I ask is that first and foremost, you talk to them. If you give your child a phone, if your 4th grade child a phone, or they have access to the internet or anything like that, you start talking to them about what's out there and about how to talk to your, if you're in trouble, not just with human trafficking, there's drug trafficking, there's so many things, domestic violence or relationship violence, teen dating violence, that they have that comfort level to come to you if they need help. But again, as parents, we have to be able to say, okay, because I tell my daughter all day long, you come to me if you need anything. I'm here for you. I've got your back. I got you. And the day that she did come to me and she told me something that was going on, I lost it. I was like, oh my God, you know better. Why would you? I reacted, right? There's no handbook. And again, what we want our kids to know is we may be upset at the situation. We're not upset with them, we're upset with the situation. But again, like you said, I had a girl tell me point blank, really, miss, do you really think I'm going to go to my mom and say, hey, mom, I had sex with someone for money, they videotaped it, and now I'm being blackmailed. Can you help? So, I get it. So again, finding someone maybe outside of the home, someone at school, someone they trust. And we also, we'll tell them, it may not be a good thing to, trust your friends. And tell them or ask them for help. Go to an adult, someone that can help you. Sometimes, someone their age might not give them the best advice, or someone their age may turn around and tell other people. So again, traffickers exploit vulnerabilities. Doesn't matter what side of town you live on. It doesn't matter, male or female. A lot of times our kiddos will post things on social media, and especially, the younger ones like that I worked with in elementary or even going into middle schools. If, they have, say, Facebook still, they will accept any friend request. And they'll let anyone follow them on Instagram because they want more followers. And of course, our kiddos post everything. If they, they're having some issues at home, they're fighting with parents, they post it. They're not feeling good about themselves, they post it. If there is a history of emotional, sexual, or physical abuse, they're an easier target, unfortunately. We've had many survivors will say, you know what, I was raped by my mom's boyfriend, so what my boyfriend made me do wasn't a big deal. Unfortunately, I hate to use it, but that's what they say. It's not a big deal. Like, I've been through it. It's my normal. It's the norm. I'm used to it. Especially when they don't know what a healthy relationship looks like to them. If they lived in a home that's chaotic with domestic violence or emotional abuse, it's normal. This is what they see. This is what their mom went through. That's unfortunately one of the biggest ones we've seen with our survivors. The LGBTQ population and our runaway youth. I was at a training and there was a trafficker that said, he can spot a runaway and homeless youth in a matter of 3 to 5 seconds. He says, but they do not approach for about 48 hours because he says if by those 48 hours, if they had someone looking for them or if they had a place to go, then they would be there. They'd be home safe or with someone. If they had any money, then, by the 48 hours, it's gone. So in other words, they're tired, they're hungry, and they're looking for a place to stay. He says, with the LGBTQ population, if maybe they got kicked out because their parents or, whoever they're living with doesn't accept them, he said even better. We come in and say, hey, I was in your shoes. I was homeless. No one helped me. So now I want to give back and I want to help you guys. So let me buy you a meal. And that's how easy it is just to begin to engage them. And a lot of times our, runaway youth will hang around places that are open for 24 hours and that have Wi-Fi. Laundromats are a really, really popular place that a lot of these kiddos hang out. The bus depot is also one that we see a lot of young people hanging out. And again, social media, a lot of times, again, people will say, okay, tell me what side of towns is dangerous. There was, we spoke to the news. They wanted to do a story about human trafficking in our area and how to stay safe. And I remember one of the questions they asked was, is it safe to put gas at night? And I thought, well, you should always be on guard anyway. Not just because you're worried about being trafficked or kidnapped. Again, they're going back to those misconceptions of being kidnapped. It's anywhere. It's any side of town. But again, please be aware, you worry about what's going on outside your home. Be aware about what's going on in your home, who your kiddos are talking to. These job ads that are out there also, just please be aware. Talk to your kiddos. Talk to your nieces and nephews. It's difficult as a parent. You have everything going on, virtual learning, and then now it's like, oh, I have to go talk to my kids about human trafficking. Like, how do I even begin that? So, just talk to them about predators, and please, it's not stranger danger. Many of our survivors knew their trafficker, so we need to get away from stranger danger. It's someone they know, someone that, is too good to be true. That friend that I'll be here for you. I'll understand you. Your family doesn't. It's a huge flag. Anyone that, would say, don't tell your parents that we're talking, or don't, because then I'll get in trouble, or, I'm here for you and your parents aren't. That's a huge, huge red flag to talk to our kiddos about. If someone's telling them these things, it's not a good person. We always hear about the lure is the fast. You want to make fast, easy money. And there is no such thing. Again, when we talk to our kiddos, whether it's human trafficking, it's drug smuggling, it's holding a weapon, it's, anything like that, there's no such thing. They're telling you, what, or they'll even tell them, well, you're a minor, nothing's going to happen to you. I disagree, because I see them all the time at JPD. They have drug charges for smuggling, or they were holding a weapon for somebody, and they're in there. And like I tell them, a lot of times it's because these adults are putting that responsibility. So if you get caught, it's on you. And they just wipe their hand, they clean their hands and walk away. So the average age inducing into human trafficking for females, it's 12 to 14. For boys, it's actually younger, it's 11 to 13. So many times, going back to why don't they just ask for help? If you're telling me that they're walking around in our community, if they're at the Walmart, why can't they just ask for help? Why can't they just go to the police? And a lot of times it's a lot what we call a trauma bonding. It's very similar to Stockholm Syndrome. This is a relationship that they have formed with somebody. We had a 13-year-old girl who was posting on Facebook that she didn't feel good about herself, that she was always, she hated her mom. She just, her friends were the pretty ones. Her friends had the boyfriends. No one was interested in her. And she was contacted by, a guy that she didn't know. And he said, hey, I think you're really pretty. And she said, Miss, I didn't answer him because, I didn't respond because I didn't know him. And she said that she was having a really bad night and she decided that night she was going to run away. And she posted it on social media that she was running away from home. And she said, Miss, in like seconds, he messaged me telling me not to run away from home. It was dangerous, that he would, stay up all night messaging me if I wanted to. And, just promise him, she wanted me to promise him that she wasn't going to run away. And she said they just struck up, they messaged, and she said they began messaging every day. So they messaged back and forth for 3 months. They eventually met in person. She lied to her mom and she met this guy at the mall. And she said, Miss, I figured the mall is safe because there's a lot of people. In case he wants to kidnap me, somebody will stop him. Again, it's that mentality of like force, using force to, be taken out or kidnapped. And that's not, a lot of times that's not how it happens. So they were meeting at the mall every Saturday. He would ask her, what does my baby girl need today? And she'd say, well, I need pants for school. I need some jeans. And he'd say, all right, pick any store here at the mall and I'll buy you a pair. And he would buy her 2. And then he would say, what does my baby girl need, next Saturday? And she'd say, I need shoes. And he'd say, pick any store and I'll buy you. He bought her 2 pairs. And then he said one day, I really miss talking to you and hearing about how your day's going. I can't text you. We can't communicate. He said, but let's go to the Apple store and I'll let you pick out any phone you want. So, of course, he takes her and she picks out the most expensive one. And he said, all right, this is how you and I can communicate. If you're having a bad day, text me. He said, you have to take care of this phone. You have to guard this phone with your life because if anybody finds out, I could get in trouble. You could put me in jail. And he would tell her, is that what you want? And she'd say no. And he said, I'm sorry. It's just people aren't going to understand our relationship. It's not my fault. I love you so much. You're so mature. And he said, okay, whenever we're done texting, he says, turn your phone off. Go to your restroom. And on the restroom, the toilet, the back part of it is a tank. He said, lift the lid to the tank. Tape a Ziploc baggie to the lid and slide the phone in there and then put the lid down. He says, unless your toilet breaks, no one's is ever really gonna look in there. And that's, she would do that, and mom never found that phone. He eventually, turned the tables on this girl and said that, told her that he wanted to make up that money that he spent on her. And he said that, they could make some fast, easy money, that he had a buddy that thought she was beautiful and that, wanted to sleep with her, and he would pay $300. So her response was, I'm not going to cheat on you. See, he told her he wanted her to sleep with someone for money, and she didn't get it. And her mind, she was cheating because he put a name on it. He told her that she was his girlfriend. He was her boyfriend. They were in a relationship. So, of course, she saw it as cheating. So he eventually, talked her into it, manipulated her, and got her to, sleep with this buyer who wasn't even his friend for some money. So when she was done, he told her, okay, you have 5 more appointments. She didn't know what an appointment was, and he told her, you're going to do this 5 more times. She said no, and he said, okay, you don't want to, then I'm just going to post this video of you having sex for money. And he said, do you know what that makes you? And she said, no. And he said, that makes you a prostitute because prostitutes have sex for money. He said, not only that, but once I post it and this goes viral, everyone's going to see you for who you are. You're dirty. You're a whore. Your mom's going to see it. I'm going to tag your friends and your family. And she froze. She was so afraid. So for about 3 months until he was arrested, she would get out of school. Before she'd get out of school, she would, on her work phone, the one he gave her, he would text the appointments for that afternoon. She would get out of school, walk to the motel that was 4 blocks from there, and she'd see her appointments, and then she'd walk back to school, and Mom thought she was at practice or tutoring. And she came to us. She was brought to us, and she ended up running from our shelter about 3 different times. And then she'd run away, and they'd bring her back, and she'd run away. During that time, Mom talked to us and said that she was signing over her parental rights. She didn't want this little whore around her siblings. Mom had no idea, didn't understand what was going on. She just saw it as this young girl, her daughter, was choosing to sleep with men for money. So this girl, it all made sense. She said her boyfriend, because that's how they refer to them, is the only one that loved her. He told her that her mom didn't care about her. He told her that he was the only one that was going to be there for her and take care of her. So she ran from our shelter looking for him on 3 different occasions. She did not find him, but she found his friend. And his friend said, you need a place to stay. I'll take care of you. You're fine here. You'll be, you're going to be okay. And unfortunately, he began trafficking her as well. And it's been about 4 years since we've heard from her. So I don't even know if she's still in town. So it's, they control through love and romance and manipulation, brainwashing. They tell them it's their fault. No, I don't even know if she's alive anymore. Hopefully, like I said, she would check in with us. And we had a DPS a DPS officer that made it his mission to, if she was in the area, he was going to find her, and he would find her and bring her back. So she, at the time, was 13. So, they'll tell them that no one's going to help you. No one's going to believe your crazy story. And of course, if you don't understand what trafficking is, that's what it sounds like, a crazy story. That it's your fault, you chose this. What else? Just things like that. A lot of craziness, a lot of, putting it back on them. And especially, if it's crazy. It's like a roller coaster of emotions. And again, if they trauma bond with this person, they, a lot of times they isolate them. So if there's a drug dependency, if this person has a drug problem, then a trafficker will provide the drugs and then say, well, you can work it off. So when we talk about providing for the victim materially, it's even just buying them their basic needs, like this person was doing, pants, shoes, whatever they need. And many, many times it's just basic needs, food, that they will ask for. So a lot of times people will say, okay, if this happens in El Paso, it's because of Mexico. This really doesn't go on here in El Paso. And more so, or they, again, I think I-10 has more to do with it than being a border city. I-10 runs so far east and west that, you can come from California to Phoenix, stop in El Paso, post an ad, and make your way down to Florida. So when we talk about posting an ad, the buying and selling of people is online. About 2.5 years ago, Backpage.com was the most popular website to buy people. Of course, they shut that down, but we all know that once they shut one down, 3 more pop up. So these websites are nothing but ads. And so say you're looking for a female, you will go through all the ads, you'll scroll through the ads, you find someone you like, you click on that ad, and it opens up. They'll have pictures and a description of the person that they're selling, and then a phone number. That phone number, you can call or text that phone number. You will set up a meet. A meet could be at a park. A meet could be at an apartment. It could be at a home. anywhere where that buyer wants to meet up. And then you can even pay through PayPal. So in a matter of 3 or 4 minutes, you could buy someone, just like if you're ordering a pizza, unfortunately. So this statistic from 2016 is estimates of 300,000 victims of human trafficking in Texas alone. And, statistics are difficult. Many of the statistics we get is from the National Human Trafficking Hotline. But if people aren't calling in to report, then it looks like, there's not much going on in El Paso. We've talked to survivors, and some of them have said, you know what, I'm not calling an 800 number. I don't even know what that is. Or what if they don't speak, I speak Spanish, and what if they don't speak Spanish? So it's just a lot of, barriers or fears. They'll say, I'd, be more comfortable calling a local number. So again, statistics are very, very hard to come by. So when we talk about red flags, and I know some of these, and this is what we talk to, a lot of times educators or our medical community. 1 or 2 of these red flags is definitely, something that you should, if you're in a school setting, that maybe you should talk to another teacher or someone that interacts with this student. An older boyfriend or group of friends, and we're not talking. One time this one girl said, "Miss, are you talking about I'm a freshman and my boyfriend's a senior? Is that what you're talking about?" Well, I'm talking about maybe you being 14 and your boyfriend is 30. You being 15 and your boyfriend is 45. Or the people you're hanging around with are that much older. There's a huge age difference. That's a red flag. If you know someone, and going back again to a school setting, if you know the family, or if you know that student at the beginning of the school year couldn't afford uniform or school supplies, and now they're coming in with really expensive phones, or expensive shoes, or name brand clothes, that's a red flag. And yes, I understand that there's some students in our schools that their parents could afford that, but I'm talking about the kiddos that the family, or that they're struggling, or that they couldn't afford uniforms or school supplies at the beginning of the year. Again, that's a red flag. Withdrawal or lack of interest in previous activities, and it's interesting because you have some that just completely isolate, and then you have some that talk a lot about it. Their lingo, they talk about their hustle. Hustle could be anything from trafficking to drugs. They have out calls, in calls. They're working at night, so they'll talk a lot about it. There was this one young lady, she's one of our survivors that we're working with. She would talk about what she was doing all the time at school. And people would just be like, you know what, she's whatever. And before I even, continue, the person that called us concerned about this young lady was one of her peers, actually. We had done a presentation at school, and that afternoon, one of her peers from her class called and said, there's this girl in my class and she talks a lot of shit. And we were like, what? And she said, yes. And well, what do you mean by that? Well, she talks about how she does these webcam shows and they put money in her PayPal account or in her credit card, or she's doing this and she's doing that. And I just kind of out of curiosity, I said, and is a teacher there? And she said, yeah, the teachers are there, but they just kind of look at her and they shake their head. And, one of the teachers one time had said, yeah, she's a fast girl. She's a fast little girl. So unfortunately, again, it's all these comments and this, that really make us mad. You should, and again, a lot of times people say, oh, I don't want to report, because what if it's not true? Or what if this girl's just making things up for attention? It doesn't matter. She's a minor. She was 15. You have to call, you have to make that report. So when we met with her and talked to her, she had told us flat out that was the only way that was her outcry. She was hoping somebody would step in and say, what's going on? Why are you constantly talking about it? Or is this really going on? She said, I just wanted somebody to say something, and nobody would. So tattoo and branding are just like the ones you see on the screen. are, like a rancher brands cattle. This is what traffickers do. They brand their victims to show ownership. The barcode is really popular. Initials and names are really popular. Many times it's on the neck, the chest, the arms, or the back of the neck. I've seen them where it's daddy's whore, daddy's girl, daddy's ATM, anything that they want to put on them. Dollar signs are big as well. And I've seen them as young as 5th, 6th grade kids that have these brands on them. So there's a history of running away, instability at home. This is definitely something to keep an eye out for, because they, have that vulnerability. They make them, unfortunately, they're vulnerable to a whole population of predators. Drug use, if, again, going back to if they have a drug problem, there's someone there that's going to provide the drugs, but it's going to be for an exchange. There's going to, they're going to expect that payment some way or another. And probably one of the most important things that I want to, talk about is, females are not the only victims. We worked with a young man, and it was he was the summer of his senior year. He answered a job ad. He wanted to be a model. He called this talent agency, and this talent scout was talking to him, and he said, asked him how old he was, and this young man said, I'm 17. And he said, well, you're a minor. And he's like, that's okay, but sometimes it's difficult because we have to go through your parents. And sometimes parents don't want to send you out on go-sees and jobs. They asked him, when are you turning 18? And he said, actually turn 18 next month. He said, well, if you're still interested, call us back. So this young man called back when he turned 18. And he said, so the talent scout said, send me some selfies. So anything you have on your phone, send it to me. So he sent him some selfies, and he said, I think you're a good-looking young man. I definitely think we can work with you. Would you be willing to come to LA, all expense paid, so we can do a face-to-face interview? And the young man said, that's fine. So he lied to his mom and said he was spending the night at his friend's. And he flew to LA, and, during that interview, the talent scout asked him, wait, you mentioned that you were a senior in high school, is that correct? And the young man said, yes. And he said, well, that's difficult because many times the go-sees are out of town and they're a few days, and I can't guarantee that this work is only going to be during the weekend. What if it lands during the week, falls on the week, and you're not available, like, because you're in school? So he said, okay. And he said, well, there's another, I guess, how did he put it? I can't even tell you how he put it, but there's another way you can make some fast, easy money. And he said, what? And he said, it's in pornography. And he said, oh no, I'm not interested in porn. And he said, well, do you have sex with girls? And he said, well, of course I have sex with girls. And he said, well, why wouldn't you want to have sex with these beautiful women and make thousands of dollars? And so he said, nope, still not interested. And he said, well, look, so that this trip won't be a total waste, how about I can set up a movie for you. I know that, I can reach out to someone, see if there's anything going on today. And, the going rate is about $2,000, and you could fly back home to El Paso this evening with $2,000 cash in your pocket. So he said, he was like, yeah, you know what, why not? So he did it. They paid him his $2,000. He came back to El Paso. Then the talent scout reached out to him again and said, hey, there's another movie. Would you be interested? This one pays $4,500. And he said, yes, $4,500, absolutely. And they said, okay, we're going to fly you into LA. So they flew him into LA. He got to the location of where they're filming the movie. He said that the man there told him, hey, there's been a change of plans. This is a gay porn. And he said, oh, I'm not gay. And he said, I don't care. I don't care if you're gay or not. This is a movie that's going to be made. Easy way or hard way, but it's going to get made. So when they were done with that movie, they said, well, since you're here, we're going to make another one. So that day he made 2 movies, and they threw $500 at him and said, go back home. So he flew back to El Paso. And so if you're talking about the law, that could even be considered the fraud in the case, right? Lies about type of job. So he came back to El Paso. It's about 2 weeks before school starts. He was ashamed. He was disgusted with himself. He decided he didn't want to live anymore. And he said he had a best friend that was his best friend since elementary, and they would go shooting. So he said his friend had access to guns, so he went over to his house and said, hey, you know what, I want to go target shooting by myself out in the desert, lend me one of your guns. And his friend said, sure, didn't see anything, wrong. And as they were walking back to get the gun, this young man said, Miss, I couldn't hold it in. Like, I told him everything. He said, it just came out like word vomit, everything. And his friends looked at him and said, there's no way. There's no way I'm going to give you that gun. I know what you're going to do with it. And so the young man didn't get the gun, so he left. So, we were grateful, right, to this young man who did not give him the gun. So a lot of times when I give this case study at schools, I'll always ask them, like, what do you guys think that, the guy that didn't give the gun to his friend, what do you think he did afterwards? And they're like, okay, he called his mom, or he called for help. He called a trusted adult, someone that could help him. And I said, okay, all good answers, right? I said, but that's not what he did. He got on Snapchat and he just, everything that his friend told him, he posted it. Everything. It went viral. I mean, it just spread like wildfire. It was all over social media. This kid's name and what he had done, or not what they made him do. This young man was an amazing athlete, star football player. He was junior prince of his high school, and now he was known as gay porn guy on social media. So that's how, he went back to school, and when I talked to him, he said, who, you say you partner with law enforcement, right? He says, I don't want any services from you. I want all of this to go away. And he said, but you mentioned that your partners are law enforcement. Can I speak to somebody that might be able to help me take these videos down, take these pictures down? So I said, yeah. So then we connected him with someone in law enforcement, and he said, all I want is for you to take these videos and these pictures down. And the agent said, okay, let me ask you a few questions. How old were you when you made these movies? He said, I was 18. And he said, okay. He said, you didn't sign anything, did you? And he said, no, you didn't. He asked him, did you sign a contract? And he said, no, I didn't sign a contract. And he said, okay, good. He said, but I signed something for tax purposes. And he said, what do you mean? He says, well, I don't remember the exact language on the paper, but, and he started telling the agent what he could remember, and the agent said, you signed a contract. That was not a tax paper, that was a contract. So you gave them permission to make, to use his likeness, his pictures, and you gave him permission, that you were making the movie. And so unfortunately, this is what these predators do. When he called, he was 17, and that's why they say call back. Because had they done anything when he was 17, then there would be child pornography. They told him to call back when he was 18. They presented that contract as a tax document so that he could get paid. So these predators know exactly what they're doing. They know it, unfortunately, how to, again, this young man's vulnerabilities, his void, he was looking for a summer job. And he just thought, why not answer this simple ad that read, looking for models, no experience necessary, a phone number, and it's like $2,000 a week. That was the job ad. So this is a number to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. So many times people say, well, if I have a tip or I have a suspicion or something just doesn't feel right, or something's, I think something's going on with someone, what number can I call? So calling the hotline, what that happens, they take any information that you give them. Many times people say, well, it's not a lot. I don't want to call, or I'm not even sure if it's true. Call anyway. Give them the information and let the professionals kind of figure it out. We don't want you to be the detective. They're not going to say, okay, go back and find out. Go back and find, ask some more questions. Go back. They're not going to ask you to do that. Whatever information you provide, they'll take. And what happens is they'll take that information, then they disseminate it to FBI, Homeland, DPS, and then we get an email letting us know if they need our services. Also, if this is an emergency, we'll always, we ask that you don't ever try to confront anyone. You don't ever, you put yourself at risk, and you may put that survivor at risk. We can't even do that. Many times they'll ask us, they'll call us and say, Miss, this is what's going on. I don't know what's, somebody's following me. We'll never say, okay, we'll go get you or we'll go help you. We'll ask if you're in immediate danger, call 911, and then, we can, get there afterwards. But we don't, these could be dangerous people, and we don't want to put you at danger and the survivor as well. Okay. Do we have some time for some questions?
I think we do. And something, somebody had already asked about how do we approach the subject and what age is appropriate for social media? What would you suggest?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yes. How do we approach this subject with our children, and what age is appropriate for social media? Sylvia 21 asked that.
It's hard because as an individual, again, I go back to, yes, you can report anonymously, absolutely. If you say, okay, like no social media, my kids won't have any of it. You're not going to play this, you're not going to do that. They'll go and do it behind our back. So having that conversation of saying, okay, maybe I don't want you to have a Snapchat, and this is why. Or if you have a Snapchat, if you have a TikTok, I have access to it. And these are my concerns. A lot of times you don't know who you're talking to. We talk about, Catfish, that MTV show. We always say this is extreme catfish, just kind of talking to them because they're naive. They don't see the world as dangerous, even talking to them, if they're playing video games and they have their headset on, take it off, let me hear, because sometimes, tell them, sometimes adults could be playing video games and they may try to trick you, tell them, things like that. If you need help or if someone messages you and makes you feel uncomfortable, come get me, don't keep it a secret. Even if they say you're going to get in trouble, we're going to hurt your family, or I know where your mom works, or I know where your dad works, or I know where your grandma lives, and we're going to come and kill you. And you just tell them, you know what, any of these are all lies and threats to keep you from asking for help. That's how that's difficult. The right age. It's up to you. I mean, it's hard because I see it where, parents, I see the parents at the parent meeting with their kids and they're like, oh, my kid doesn't play that. My kid doesn't have that. And then I'll ask them like kind of on the side and they're like, yeah, I have a Snapchat and it's on my friend's phone. Or yeah, so it's like, it's difficult. That would be, I guess, to each parent of what the appropriate age is. But I think, sitting down and talking to them about what your fears are and this is what concerns you. It's not them, it's what's out there, and it's the content. There's some Disney websites that if you're off by one letter, then it takes you to a porn site. There's the porn sites are very similar to many of the Disney websites. I mean, you can just mistype and it'll take you to a porn site. So it's difficult, because that I think would just be an individual. Because I mean, if it was up to me, you'd say no, these elementary kids, but you see it all the time. A 5-year-old, whatever, at a restaurant, they hand them a tablet and it's like, here's your tablet, and you don't know what they're playing on, or you don't know what they could click on. So it's just having that conversation. Or if you're going to get on social media, if you're on your phone, you can sit next to me and we can, go through TikTok and we can go through your Snapchat. But not just trafficking, but we're also talking about cyberbullying. There's so many things. And just.
Oops. Miro. Let me see. Raquel? I can, hold on. Say something, because I think we lost your voice. Nope.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now I can. Thank you.
Yes.
There's a question. Rosa has a question.
I'm sorry?
Yes. My name is Raquel Garcia, and I have a question. According to the you were talking about the black web, something like that?
Yes.
Okay. I have a question. um I do like the police or like the government or somebody in like in the department of let's say where the police works and everything. Do they have like, don't they like can track the numbers? Can they track the numbers or at least the conversation? Or is it just like because it's a dark web, they don't have access to that?
That is such a good question. And before I answer it, if you all, there's an amazing documentary, and the name of it is I Am Jane Doe. And it talks about everything you're asking me, how there's so many loopholes in the law that allows these predators and these websites to exist. And going back
Oh
to
my
it,
God.
it follows Backpage.com. So so Backpage was being sued by these survivors and victims, and Backpage pretty much said I think they were able to get out of it because they're saying that they're a third party. They're not responsible for people posting ads or the content of the ad. And the law, because the law, when they were able to find a law in the loophole, that it was true. You know, it wasn't, you couldn't hold them responsible for what was being posted on their site. And law enforcement does a lot of sting operations. I'd say about a month ago, DPS, this time they targeted the buyers, and they arrested 5 buyers last month of solicitation of a minor, and they posted their mugshots. So, you know, we have a lot of law enforcement that do sting operations on a regular basis to apprehend, or to, sometimes they'll do recovery where they're just, if that person, recovery and release, if that person, they offer help, or if they don't want the help, then they'll tell them, okay, they won't arrest them, but at least they get to offer the help. Many of these ads, and this is interesting, and we learned it on that documentary, I Am Jane Doe, they will use emojis in the phone number. So say if you're calling 592, and you're familiar with the whole system of buying and selling, the number 5 will be a happy face emoji, the number 9 will be the crying face emoji, and the number 2 will be a heart. So it'll be like
So
happy face, heart, crying face, and a heart. Well, law enforcement doesn't have a program to decode those emojis.
oh, okay. So
That's
it's
how
like a code.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I
Yes.
understand now. So basically,
Raquel, there's another question. You
Yes,
actually mentioned that girls start at around the age of 12 and boys around the age of 11.
yes.
Why do they start boys earlier than women or than girls?
Unfortunately, with boys, and they actually will sell them for more money. They have described it as like a delicacy. That's how they describe it. A young prepubescent male. And it's as disgusting as that sounds, they in their mind, and the way they say it is, you know, a female, you know, is pretty basic, but a prepubescent boy will go for more money. And that's why they start them. It always goes back to money, because human trafficking is a $1 billion industry.
Yes.
So it's, you know, not that long ago during a sting operation, they arrested a mother in Colorado, and she was selling her 5-year-old daughter and her 3-month-old baby. So, yeah, it doesn't, for whatever, I mean, unfortunately, if there's a demand out there, there's always going to be these people that are going to be looking.
Yeah.
I think,
yes.
sorry, did you have another question? I think, you know, going back to how do you talk to them? You know, if like on the message there, you know, if they're your nephew, always get your parents, you know, their parents' permission, or even talk to them with your parents, with the parents there, or ask, you know, if the parents are okay, just, you know, talk to them and say, you know, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, you may know or you may not know that goes on the internet. There's a lot of pictures that might pop up when you're playing a video game, or if you're on YouTube, and, you know, a lot of times it's adults pretending to be kids. You know, just kind of talk to them, and depending on the age, right? I mean, as they're older, you have a little more, like, I guess, leniency or leeway to talk to them about things. And when they're younger, they may not grasp it. They may not understand what you're talking about. But National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has amazing resources on how to talk to elementary age kids about, putting too much information out. Secrets versus surprises. If someone tells you, hey, don't tell mom, or hey, don't tell your dad, that's a big red flag. But if someone's saying, hey, don't tell mom that, we're buying her this, a laptop for her birthday, that's a difference, so it's understanding secrets versus a surprise. So if you're talking elementary school age, young kids, I would really say to look into National Center for Missing and Exploited Children on how to talk about being safe on the internet. And one of the most important things, to tell them is if you're ever in trouble, or if there's something that makes you feel uncomfortable, that makes you feel scared, you don't want to tell your mom and dad, you can talk to me. I'm not going to get mad. You deserve to, to find help. You deserve to be safe, things like that. Because a lot of times, they click on something and they get scared because then they know they're going to get in trouble, or they know that they're like those third grade boys that they told me, that they didn't want to tell mom and dad or what was going on. Those videos made them feel uncomfortable, but if they told their parents, then their parents wouldn't let them play Roblox anymore. And they really like playing Roblox. So, depending on the age, as they're middle school, 5th, 6th grade on up, it's a little bit easier. I'm telling you, the big thing with middle school kids is they want a sugar daddy. That is all the rave. They talk about how they want a sugar daddy. They want that Kardashian lifestyle.
I don't flat out tell me what a sugar daddy is, other than buying gifts. Yeah.
So a lot of times it's these older gentlemen that provide material things or money, and it's basically exchanging sex for services, even though a lot of times, or you see, I don't have sex with them and he just gives me this money, or I don't know. No, at some point they're going to force you to do something. Yeah. They're going to push you beyond your boundaries. They're never going to pay you. And this is, one of the little girls said, I want a sugar daddy. And I said, tell me why. And she said, well, miss, they pay you $1,000 to go out to eat with them. And I said, where? And she said, here in El Paso. And I said, so someone's going to pay you $1,000 to go to Chico's Tacos with them? And they're like, I miss not Chico's, but to a nice restaurant. And you don't have to have sex with them. So that's, putting lipstick on a pig. That's the lure. They make it look really nice. And of course, these young kiddos don't eat. They have no idea that that is just very far, far from the truth, that they will push you beyond their boundaries. They're not going to ask you. They're going to take what they want.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. One thing that I do want to say, these organizations survive on donations, and we were talking about donations at the very beginning of the presentation. One of my classes is already asking from a high school how they can help, and I had already asked you about where we could not just send. You were talking about disinfectant and probably face masks, yes. But perhaps even monetary donations. Where do we do this if we want to help out?
If anyone has a monetary donation or even a gift card, Walmart gift cards are so big because many times our survivors will ask us, hey, I need, clothes, I need socks, I need this, I need that, and groceries. So, we have to get everything that they ask for and then go to Walmart and purchase it. So many times, even if a Walmart gift card would be amazing. Bus tokens also. So anything like that outside the box. But if you want to do a monetary donation, if you, we give donation receipts. So go ahead and call me. So I'm in charge of picking up donations and all, all that fun stuff. So if anyone has donations or anything that they would like to donate, I can go ahead and give you my phone number. And you could call us, and we would be more than happy to pick up anything that you would like to donate. And like I said, we go ahead and give you a donation receipt for your donation. And I can go ahead and give you my number or my email.
Yes. Can you type it there so that perhaps anybody wants to contact you, they can actually do it directly with you?
Sure. Yes.
And they're asking there if you use Cash Apps.
We, believe it or not, we do not. That would be nice. That's on our list. We are in the, when we got a new, we transitioned to a new executive director, that's what she was like, you guys are so behind, use a Cash App for your monetary donations. And we're like, oh, okay. But no.
If you don't mind
definitely.
putting your email address so that people can contact you directly.
Yes, I went ahead
and of course she just wrote it there if any of you are interested. Thank you so very much for the presentation. This is the second time I hear you, and I learned a lot more from I learned so much from both presentations. I'm pretty sure all of us are flabbergasted with the information that you provided us with today. Thank you very much to you, and thank you very much to everyone that once again shared their Monday with us. Take care, and this would mark the end of the presentation. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
If you just want to stay behind, Raquel, don't leave me, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick question. My name is Loretta.
Yes,
Let's go for
Yes,
Raquel. Since you work with the schools and stuff, have you ever heard of a program called TAB that El Paso used to deal with?
No.
It was through Thomason. It was like a sex education program. It got discontinued. My sister used to be an instructor. And my son was one of the students, and they would go to schools and talk about bullying, sex education, HIV, all that. Have you ever thought about trying a program like that for the schools?
With the schools, we had to go in front of a school health advisory committee and present our presentation to parents, to administrators, to counselors, to nurse and they actually allowed us to go in there, but with very, very, with restrictions, like you have to be very, your presentations are going to be age appropriate. You have to be careful what you say. I think they just thought we're going to go in there and talk a lot about sex. So
I understand that part, and that's how TAB was. However, the parents had to do a 12-week course with the kids. So I was wondering, do you have any programs like that for kids and parents? That would probably be something cool to do.
That would be, and we don't. I don't know if you know who I can, get in touch with, because that would be amazing.
Because
to do it, it's not just a one-time thing, where
this program was 12 weeks, like I say, like parents, mom and dads had to go. They separated the kids, talked with the parents, and then they talked with the kids about everything you could think of. And then they brought the parents together, and they got a certificate. They would go and do outreach programs with other students. However, it was involved with the school. So I was just thinking, have you guys ever thought of doing a private program like that, to where you could have parents be able to talk about social media with their kids and what to look out for and so forth? I don't know. It was just a thought.
That is an amazing thought. I mean, no, definitely that's something possibly to go back with my director. And if you know anyone that maybe we can talk to and just maybe kind of see how they did it, and because I wouldn't even know how to begin. And
if there's a way I can get your information, my sister, she was an instructor with TAB for years, and it was through Thomason Hospital, but they discontinued that program due to funds. And I wish they wouldn't have, because it was such a great program for parents, teachers, and students, and it's a sad thing that it was discontinued. But if they could correlate that into what was called the TAB program, that would be awesome.
Loretta?
Yeah.
Loretta Bird.
Okay, she wrote her information and I retyped it. It's at the very bottom of the list. There's her
Okay.
email address. Okay?
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much.
Loretta, thank you. If you could email me, that would be amazing. I would love to learn more on how we could possibly get started on that. That would be great. Thank you so much, Loretta.
Awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good evening.
Oh, hold on. Don't hit that because it's going to go. Okay. No.
And it's, let me see, view reports.
We do have a volunteer program at Center of Hope. If email me and I can email you a volunteer application and you can fill it out and send it back to me. And then we can do like an interview. Right now, we're not doing a lot of volunteer. There's really not a lot of volunteer opportunities because of COVID. Because usually we would utilize our volunteers to go out and do presentations with us and tabling events. So we're not doing any of that right now. But either way, if you email me, I could email you a volunteer application.
Okay, this was for Loretta?
Oh, somebody asked me, Jason Acosta asked me if
Oh,
we
okay.
have volunteer opportunities.
Jason, did you hear her? Well, did you read
Thank
that
you,
from?
Jason.
How do you stay sane?
That's always the interesting one. We have such an amazing group of co-workers that, I mean, we do a lot of self-care. I mean, we celebrate Galentine's. A lot of us have pets, so we take them to the office. And it's difficult because I have 2 kids. So many times after I'd hear the story, I'd come back and I'd stare at my daughter. It was horrible, but you have to be able to say, all right, that's not my daughter. The survivor I'm working with is not my child. That's, but again, being able to talk to your coworkers and, a lot of self-care, it's how we get through it. Being able to say, you know what, go to our executive director and say, I can't anymore. I'm going to go home for the day. And our executive director is, amazing. And she says, absolutely do what you need to do. And then come back and regroup. Whatever we need, our executive director has been amazing. We also work closely with Child Guidance Center. So a lot of their self-care trainings, we utilize at the office. And if we ever need to talk to anybody, they're always there. So yeah, it's always the interesting part how to because you can't unsee what you've been told or what you've seen. So, but no, it's a lot of I guess the relationship we have with our coworkers that keeps us going.
No, we still have 32 people lingering around, so I'm not sure if they have a question for you.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Okay, so I have an old friend that I am wondering if she was trafficked because she's a stripper and she, ever since I think we were about 17, she's posted like very provocative photos on social media, and now she has like all these really nice cars and all of these, like she has her own apartment, and I just don't know how she could get that much money that fast, and she's always hanging out with older men. So I'm wondering what I should do. And she lives in Houston. She's not from El Paso.
How old is she now?
She's 18.
Yeah, it's hard because we do work. We've had some people that we've talked to, and they're like, they're adults, and they'll tell us, like, you know what, I don't want your services. I'm good. This is how I put food on my kids' table, or on my dinner table. So I'm good. There's nothing we can do. We don't force them. What we'll tell them is like, okay, we're here. This is who we are. If you ever need anything, let us know. But again, they're adults. If they're minors, it'd be a whole different story. But it's difficult because I can, we don't want to offend or accuse, but, telling her, if you have that relationship where you can say, like, hey, if you ever want to get out of that life, like, I know there's there's organizations that can help you out, but unfortunately that lure of the money is so powerful that it's difficult to leave that life. Even, and one time this one girl said, I have control. They come to me, they pay me. So it's in her mind, it was a form of like, I have all this power and control over men. They're choosing me to give that money to. And many times, it's like they don't even see you. This is just a service you provide. And in her mind, it was, she had all the control and the power to say yes or no. But, and that's how they see it sometimes. It just depends on her mindset. If she was maybe started doing this when she was younger, like you mentioned, kind of 17, something must have gone on in her, earlier life, or that this was okay. This was fine. But then, what? Not only stripping, but I hear this from, people who are, on OnlyFans. It's like they make a lot of money and no one touches them. And, they decide on if they want to shut it down or if they want to, post that picture or just so it's difficult. If you're an adult, then, and this is making you a lot of money, it's that lure of money. They don't want to leave that life because they go from making that much money to minimum wage. It's like, no, I can't live off of minimum wage. So it's really, really tough. It's just asking, like, doing what we do is just like, okay, if you ever need help, we're here. We can help you out. And if you're telling me she's in Houston, Houston is the hub in Texas for trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Houston is just insane. And there's a lot of programs, nonprofits in the Houston area that can help. If you need any of that information. But yeah, it's tough when you're making all this money and then you're going to go down to minimum wage. It's like, no, they'll flat out say, I can't survive. I can't maintain my lifestyle. Or, it's tough. But I mean, if you have that relationship with her where you can say, hey, if you need help or if you ever want to get out of this life, let me know. I can, but it's tough.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I feel like this presentation kind of helped me realize or understand something about my mother-in-law. She's been into drugs and prostitution since she was 17 years old. And it started out with a 25-year-old boyfriend and moving to Juarez with him. And well, drugs don't come free. But her parents were pretty much her home life was everything on that list that you showed. And this was in the 60s or the 70s.
Wow.
And she's got 9 kids.
Hello?
That's just surviving ones, but it's just there's a lot of
Wow.
clarity on how a situation like this evolves if somebody isn't able to get out of that lifestyle. When you mention about them having the hustler mentality and it being so difficult to break because working minimum wage or an average job no longer satisfies that quick fix because it's not the drugs anymore. At some point, it's the quick fix of money, and everything is always a hustle. It's I see how it trickles down to their kids that are born from this because, well, protection is not always 100%.
Right.
It's just a cycle, and those kids end up in the system too. It's just I'm glad that there's things like this. I wish that you could partner with there was an FBI agent that had done a presentation for the Autism Society regarding internet security for children. It was really great